What if Anakin became a Jedi Temple Guard? Let's begin today's story just after the Phantom Menace. Anakin has joined the Jedi Order and become Obi-Wan's apprentice. When Anakin joined the Order, he had many attachments and Obi-Wan had a lot of work to do. He missed his mother, already grew romantic feelings for Padme, and he didn't know how to deal with Qui-Gon's death. Nevertheless, Anakin began his training. He was able to catch up to his peers in no time, learning about the Force and how to wield it to his liking. Early on in Anakin's training, he developed a strong interest in the Jedi Temple Guards. He would always see them throughout the temple and loved how they carried double-bladed yellow lightsabers. He began asking Obi-Wan about the Temple Guards and their purpose. Obi-Wan would help Anakin understand, and it was clear that Anakin had a strong interest in this area. Obi-Wan would tell Yoda and Windu about this, and it interests them both very much. The thing that Temple Guards are renowned for is getting rid of all forms of attachment. You follow the will of the Force and do its bidding. Yoda believed that this would be a very good thing for Anakin, since he came into the Order at such an old age, with attachments present. Perhaps, if he joined the Jedi Temple Guards, he would be able to control himself. Obi-Wan agreed and they began pushing Anakin in this direction. Over the course of the following few months, Anakin would learn more and more about the Temple Guards, and he would eventually tell Obi-Wan that he wants to undergo the trial to become this. But he was too young. The process of becoming a Temple Guard was an extension of your training once you become a Jedi Knight. Anakin was only 9 years old and at least a decade or even more away from becoming a Knight. But Yoda and Windu believed they could make an exception for the Chosen One because of his unique past and the benefits it would have on him. And so, Anakin was summoned to the council chambers where he was assessed by the council. They asked him about the Temple Guard program and how he wants to join it. Anakin would tell them that he does. He believes this is how he should serve the Order. The council agrees and Anakin Skywalker enters the training process to become a Jedi Temple Guard. When Anakin becomes a Jedi Temple Guard, he begins to serve under Sin Drellic, the head of security. Drellic welcomed Anakin into the Temple Guards and said he would fit right in. But as he looked around, he only saw people who were at least twice his age, but most over 30 years old. He felt intimidated. But to his surprise, everyone was kind and welcoming to him, unlike his classmates who treated him terribly. This excited the young Anakin, and he believed that he had found his true home within the temple. Anakin would continue his training. Sin Drellic spent a lot of time with Anakin. He became Anakin's master of sorts. Becoming a Temple Guard didn't require a ton of training, since the Jedi were already ranked knights, which was an impressive feat. But Anakin was 9 years old and he'd only been training for a few months. Because of this, Drellic took Anakin under his wing and began to train him in the ways of the Force. After training, Anakin would train with Drellic, and the master would instill all of his knowledge within the boy. Not only did he help him with his Force abilities, but he also helped him conquer his attachments, allowing him to focus on the Force and its will. This became a father-son relationship, and Anakin benefited immensely. Over the first few years in the Temple Guard program, Anakin was only stationed on Coruscant. Most of the Temple Guards would stay inside the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, as that was their duty. But their duty extended to escorting prisoners off-world or guarding other monuments around the galaxy, but this was only a select few. Over the course of the following years, Anakin's life would be quite repetitive. He would be stationed around the temple, sometimes in the archives, outside the council chambers, and even in the Great Hall. He was protecting the temple and fulfilling his duty. He never stopped his training, always practicing his abilities and using a training saber in his room at night. Anakin was adorned in a classic Temple Guard uniform, becoming a part of a team. Anakin learned that the camaraderie between the guards is almost like its own order. Despite the fact they are dead serious on duty, after hours they become like a family, learning about each other and growing close. As a Temple Guard, Anakin learned to control his emotions. This was a practice that was deeply ingrained in the Temple Guard program. It was something that took many years to accomplish, and no one ever really stopped doing it. Over time, Anakin became detached and was taught to only allow himself to be close to the other Temple Guards. This meant that he forgot about his mother, forgot about his past, and focused on being a Jedi. When Anakin turned 16 years old, Drellic believed that he was ready to take on more advanced missions. He was believed to be around the same level as a new Temple Guard, meaning that he presented a similar skill set to a Jedi Knight. Anakin was put on duty with 2 other Temple Guards named Tux and Gray, and they were being helped by 3 more experienced Temple Guards, one of which had been in the Order for over 40 years, called Bryn. Their task was to escort a captured bounty hunter to the Outer Rim, where Jabba the Hutt had requested him. Anakin got on well with Tux and Grey, who were both in their 20s and very proficient with the Force. Tux was the apprentice of Plo Koon, a well-respected master in the Order, and Grey held lots of experience from his time as a Padawan. Anakin sometimes wondered if he would have been better off training under Obi-Wan until he completed the trials, but this was a useless thought as he would never know the answer. When they arrived on Tatooine to deliver the prisoner, their ship was attacked by other bounty hunters who were trying to kill the prisoner as he had crossed them before. The temple guards worked hard to protect the prisoner. The battle was grueling, with 2 temple guards losing their lives, but Anakin, Tux, Grey, and Bryn were able to defeat the bounty hunters and complete their mission. This made him closer to the other temple guards, and he made his first proper friends in the Order. This became Anakin's life from now on. He took on harder missions with higher stakes. The Order sent him on most of his missions with Tux and Grey, seeing the chemistry between the three and how well they worked together. This only benefited Anakin as he was with his best friends. When Anakin was 19 years old, the Clone Wars began. This meant that his role as a temple guard changed exponentially. Security at the temple was increased dramatically, and when needed, temple guards were stationed around the galaxy to support other planets and civilizations. Chancellor Palpatine, also known as Darth Sidious and leader of the Separatists, orchestrated a mission where his clone trooper protectors were brutally murdered, making a point that he needed far better security. He used this as leverage to go to the Jedi Council and request for a Jedi to provide him with security. The Council agreed with this idea and believed that it would be beneficial. Windu began to mention some available Jedi for this cause, but Palpatine specifically asked for Anakin Skywalker, knowing that he was a temple guard and trained for protection. The council didn't seem to have an issue with this and agreed, meaning that Anakin became Palpatine's personal Jedi temple guard protector. Anakin was upset to be leaving Tux and Grey, but everyone in the temple guard program knew how big of a deal this was. Sindralic was extremely proud of his apprentice and wished him the best of luck. Anakin and Palpatine would spend lots of time together. When he first arrived, Anakin was a shell of the boy he once was, detached from most of his feelings that made him so vibrant as a kid. He hadn't thought about his mother in years, and his emotions stretched only to the best interests of the Jedi. For the first few weeks, they remained primarily in Palpatine's office or someone else's on Coruscant for meetings. But the first time they went off-world was when the Dark Lord's manipulation began. On a mission to Ryloth to sign a treaty, Anakin was forced to engage Separatist forces for the first time, slicing down droids and ensuring Palpatine's safety. The Chancellor was extremely thankful about this, and on the way back to Coruscant, he began to speak to the boy. They talked about everything, and Palpatine mentions his childhood, how he was raised on Naboo in a rich family who was suddenly murdered out of nowhere. The culprit was never found. Anakin felt empathetic towards the Chancellor. The Chancellor asked about Anakin's past, but Anakin said he couldn't say. As a temple guard, they were forbidden from mentioning the past and any attachments that they grew in their life. Palpatine accepted this and moved on. After this mission, the two began to speak a lot more. They talked every day and their relationship grew a lot closer. Anakin began to get excited to go into work every day, always learning something fascinating from Palpatine. Over the course of the war, the two grew incredibly close. Anakin escorted Palpatine everywhere, and when they went off-world on Republic business, Anakin always had to protect him. This only brought the two closer and allowed the Chancellor to continue his manipulation of the boy. One day, Palpatine would ask Anakin about his past, hoping that now they had grown a bit closer. Anakin would tell him about it. Anakin didn't really know what to say, but Palpatine pressed further. Finally, Anakin explains that he was a slave his entire childhood, and that he worked on Tatooine and struggled to survive. Tears began to flood his cheeks. This was the first time he had thought about these things in years, and all of his emotions came flooding out. He tells the Chancellor how he had joined the Jedi Order and left his mother behind in the slavery life, and how he had never gone back to help her. He doesn't really know what happened to her, and it's his biggest regret now. Palpatine comforts Anakin and tells him that he doesn't live by the Jedi Code, and that if he wants some time to go to Tatooine to see his mother as his boss, he will grant him that. Anakin thanks Palpatine for this offer, but says that he shouldn't, it's been too long now. But Palpatine silences him and says that he will join him on Tatooine. Together they can visit his mother and tell her what a wonderful young Jedi her son has grown into. Palpatine accompanies Anakin to Tatooine, where they track down Shmi, who lives on a farm. Anakin meets his mother's new family, but discovers that she has been taken by the Tusken Raiders. Anakin grows enraged. He has just come to see her and won't lose her again. Anakin leaves Palpatine at the farm whilst he searches for his mother, finding her dead at a Tusken Raider camp. Rage consumes him and he kills every single being in the village, allowing his emotions to completely take over, and he turned into a completely different animal. He was using the dark side, something that he had never done before. After he killed them all, he realized what he had done and returned to the farm. He was clearly distraught after Palpatine asked what had happened. Anakin tells him everything, but Palpatine assures him that he did well. They killed his mother and they deserved to die. The Dark Lord endorsed his actions and apologized for his mother's death. Days after they returned to Coruscant, the Separatists launched their massive invasion into the planet. Coruscant hadn't seen fighting like this since the Old Age 1,000 years earlier. The clone army rushed to the defense, whilst Count Dooku and hundreds of thousands of droids rushed to the surface. This attack had been orchestrated by Darth Sidious, who knew the outcome of the battle before it had begun. Dooku leaves the droids and goes to Palpatine's office, where he finds the Chancellor sitting on his throne with Anakin Skywalker beside him, his protector. When Dooku walks in, Anakin ignites his double-bladed lightsaber and begins to attack the Sith Lord. He is fighting for the protection of the Chancellor, his only role in the Jedi Order. But Dooku wasn't here to kill Skywalker, only to knock him unconscious with the Force and steal the Chancellor. Palpatine is kidnapped by Dooku and taken aboard the Invisible Hand in the planet's orbit. When Anakin wakes up, he rushes to the council chambers and explains to the present Jedi what had happened. This was extremely inconvenient. The entire Jedi Order was busy protecting Coruscant, and now the Chancellor had been kidnapped. They were stretched too thin and couldn't send much help. Anakin was ashamed about losing so easily. He wasn't focused, but next time he would be. Anakin requested to bring 5 of his Jedi Temple guards, ones that he knows will be powerful enough for this job. The council agrees and Anakin leaves. Anakin immediately rushes through the temple to where the temple guards are, explaining to them the situation. Anakin, Tux, Grey, Syndrellic, and Bryn. Rushing through the fighting on the surface, they manage to get their way to the Republic cruiser in the sky. The clone fleet were in a massive standoff against the Separatists, with cruisers, gunships, and fighters all attacking simultaneously. Each of the temple guards take small fighters, nimble enough that they can avoid the conflict and sneak onto the command ship. Although the temple guards spent most of their time inside the Jedi Temple, they were still proficient at flying, a skill every Jedi needed to know. After destroying a few droid ships and encountering difficulties, they land inside the hangar bay of the droid command ship. The temple guards move with speed, knowing that with every second they waste, the Chancellor could be in danger. Anakin and Drellic use their senses to find where they are keeping the Chancellor. As they enter, they see him shackled to a throne with the entire battle in space as his background. This was too easy. They wouldn't leave the Chancellor completely unprotected, Drellic thought to himself. But just as that thought crossed his mind, Count Dooku appears behind them, trapping them inside. Dooku looked at the temple guards, all of which he believed he had the strength to defeat. Although he hadn't predicted to see Syndrellic, an extremely powerful duelist in the Order during Dooku's time as a Jedi. Igniting their double-bladed lightsabers, the temple guards would swing for Dooku. Grey and Tux fought with proficiency. They were extremely gifted temple guards and some of the best the Order had seen in many decades. Drellic recognized Dooku's fighting style after dueling against it numerous times a decade ago. However, now it was stronger and darker, symbolizing his transformation to evil. Bryn was the first to fall when Dooku impaled him. This angered the Jedi as they pressed their attacks forward. They were fighting disjointed. For most of them, it was their first battle against the Sith, and they didn't know what to do. Anger grew within Anakin, just like it did in the Tusken Raider camp. Dooku would not survive this fight. He pressed his attacks forward, fighting with so much speed and aggression. From the corner, Palpatine began to smirk at Anakin's brilliance. This was the Force user he needed, someone with ambition and determination to win. Before long, Anakin severs Dooku's hand and places him in a headlock. The Jedi looked at Dooku, fear painted across his face. He pleads for his life, asking for the Jedi to show mercy. Palpatine laughs as he congratulates Anakin, telling him to kill the Sith Lord. The scene is reminiscent of that in Revenge of the Sith, except now Syndrellic, Tux, and Grey were there. Once again, Palpatine tells Anakin to kill Dooku. He doesn't deserve to live and is the Dark Lord of the Sith. Anakin looks conflicted as he turns his head towards the Jedi guards. Syndrellic was cautious, telling Anakin to practice restraint. He can't kill an unarmed prisoner. It is not the Jedi way. Gray and Tux back up his words, telling Anakin that he must live. If they arrest him, they can use his information to their advantage. But Palpatine disagrees, telling the Chosen One that he must do it now. Every second they waste, the Separatists get closer to taking Coruscant. Anakin stood frozen in time, not knowing what to do. Minutes went by, the Jedi debating with Palpatine, and Anakin not knowing what to do. Luckily for him, he wouldn't have to make the decision. Palpatine hadn't planned for there to be so many guards here, and he hadn't expected Dooku to fall this easily. Because of Anakin's conflict and not killing the Count, he gave Dooku enough time to think things over. The Sith Lord realized that he had been used, played by his master as only a pawn in a long game. He never wanted to ascend with him. Instead, he wanted Anakin as his apprentice. He felt used and betrayed, and now he would get his revenge. Dooku looks at the Jedi and tells him to stop. He then reveals the truth that Palpatine is the Sith Lord, Darth Sidious. Everyone is shocked and Palpatine denies it, but Dooku provides evidence, saying that he has been manipulating the war since its beginning and always planned to have Anakin as his apprentice. Anakin didn't believe it, and Tux and Gray were confused, but Drellick, the Jedi Master in this situation, couldn't help but think he was telling the truth. Dooku continues and explains that it wasn't a coincidence that Anakin became Palpatine's bodyguard, or that Palpatine was telling him to kill those responsible for his mother's death, and now he wants to kill Dooku in cold blood. Everyone was shocked. Dooku was right. Palpatine was the Sith Lord. He was telling them things someone only close to Palpatine would know. Drellick told Anakin to calm down and that he thinks he is telling the truth. Obviously, Palpatine only denied these claims, but before he knew it, Drellick was contacting the Jedi Temple to help conduct a midichlorian test. When Palpatine heard this, he began to panic. As the Jedi stepped closer to take a blood test, Palpatine realizes that he doesn't have a choice. The secret is out. Darth Sidious unlocks the chains, keeping him restrained with the Force, before blasting Dooku with Sith Lightning and killing him. Calling on the Force, he pulls two lightsabers from his sleeves and ignites them. Sidious called them fools. They didn't realize the power they are messing with. The fight begins and Sidious moves like a blur. He is extremely powerful, using all 7 forms of lightsaber combat. Sidious and Drellick were fine. They were extremely powerful and were able to keep up with his attacks. At this point, Anakin's powers were greater than they were in Revenge of the Sith, and he was an incredibly useful asset for the Jedi. Tux remained on the defensive, hoping to stay out of the Dark Lord's firing line. Gray was so scared for his friends, hoping they wouldn't die, but this left him vulnerable and he wasn't 100% focused on the task at hand, and Sidious killed him. Anakin screams in anger, and he increases his productivity, swinging with anger and hatred. Sidious tried to kill another, but each of their defenses is admirable. Anakin and Drellick combine their attacks, and together, they are able to break through Palpatine's defenses and kill him. Anakin and Tux kneeled down next to their fallen friend, while Drellick contacted the Jedi Council and informed them of what just happened. Very quickly, without Sidious or Dooku, the droid invasion upon Coruscant failed, and the Republic forces pushed them back. Without their main leaders, the Separatist movement fell, and the entire army was defeated, leading to the Republic winning the Clone Wars. Back on Coruscant, the news of Palpatine reaches the Jedi and Senate, and the people cannot believe it. They are outraged that the Senate allowed such an evil man to manipulate them for over a decade, but were thankful the war was finally over. The Jedi Council take control of the Senate to ensure a peaceful transition of power. Anakin would go back to the Jedi Temple, where he continues his studies as a temple guard and works hard to honor his fallen friends. He develops his skills, and as the years go on, he rises the ranks of the Jedi. As Drellick gets older, he resigns from being head of security at the Jedi Temple, wanting to live the remainder of his days more peacefully. The Jedi Council elect Anakin Skywalker to succeed his position and become the new leader of the Jedi Temple Guards, which is the greatest honor of his life. Anakin Skywalker had fulfilled the prophecy, becoming a powerful and wise leader of the Jedi Temple Guards. If you enjoyed today's video, you must watch What If Anakin Reached His Full Potential and What If Anakin Was Trained from Birth. Please check out our membership page if you would like to support the channel. It really helps us out. Thank you all for watching, and may the Force be with you.